It began in silence. A midnight train cutting across frozen rails, heavy with containers, stamped boldly with red Chinese flags. Inside lay the core of a secret deal between Beijing and Moscow, a $2.8 billion shipment filled with advanced military technology, precision tools, and critical components meant to resupply Russia's battered war machine. It was supposed to be another quiet delivery in a shadow war. But that night, Ukraine was waiting. For weeks, Ukrainian intelligence had been tracking whispers across digital channels, coded shipments, new routes through Central Asia, and a suspicious cargo making its way westward. The containers, they learned, were moving through a corridor designed to bypass Western sanctions, using disguised commercial trains under false manifests. Beijing and Moscow believed they had found the perfect loophole. They were wrong. The train's route crossed into occupied territory under Russian control, an area Ukraine had recently mapped using new reconnaissance drones. High above the darkness, small Ukrainian drones equipped with thermal imaging followed the glowing signature of the engines. In Kiev, military analysts watched the movement in real time. Then came the order, confirmed by satellite intel and field agents, to strike. Moments later, the silence shattered. Precision missiles screamed across the night sky. The first hit tore through the lead car, engulfing it in fire. The second found the main containers marked machinery parts, igniting a chain of explosions so powerful they lit up the horizon for miles. What remained of the 2.8 billion cargo was nothing more than molten steel and scattered debris. As dawn broke, local footage began to spread across encrypted channels, plumes of black smoke, burning containers, and fragments with visible Chinese markings. The world took notice. Within hours, Western intelligence sources confirmed what Ukraine had done, an unprecedented strike that didn't just cripple a single shipment, but sent shockwaves through the quiet supply chain that had been feeding Russia's war effort. In Beijing, the reaction was swift but muted. Officially, China denied any involvement, claiming the train carried civilian goods. Yet behind closed doors, frustration and alarm ran deep. The destroyed shipment wasn't just about the money. It exposed the fragile balance China had been trying to maintain between public neutrality and covert support for Russia. The hit had forced their secret cooperation into the open. For Moscow, it was a devastating blow. The destroyed cargo contained critical components, parts for drones, guidance systems, and possibly even materials for missile production. Losing it meant months of setbacks at a time when Russian forces were already struggling to maintain their front lines. Kremlin insiders reportedly lashed out at logistics partners, blaming security failures and Ukrainian infiltration. But for Ukraine, this was more than just a successful strike. It was a message. A message that no matter how far or how secret the supply routes may seem, Ukrainian eyes are everywhere. Every rail line, every convoy, every transaction now carries the risk of exposure. Western analysts say this operation may mark a turning point in how Ukraine targets Russia's logistics. Instead of just striking the battlefield, Kiev is now hitting the arteries of the Russian war machine, the hidden networks that keep its tanks rolling and its factories running. By doing so, Ukraine is not only fighting the war on the ground, but also in the shadows, cutting off Russia's supply of life support before it even reaches the front. Meanwhile, the symbolism of the strike reverberated far beyond the battlefield. It sent a clear message to Beijing that its attempts to quietly arm Moscow will not go unnoticed or unpunished. The global response was mixed. Some called it a bold act of defense, others warned it could escalate tensions between Ukraine and China. But for the Ukrainian people, it was seen as justice, payback for every missile fired at their cities with foreign components hidden behind layers of deniability. As the smoke cleared, satellite images revealed the full scale of destruction, a twisted graveyard of steel and scorched tracks stretching across the snow. What once carried a symbol of defiance for the Russian war effort now stood as a testament to precision, patience, and Ukrainian resolve. In the days that followed, Russian state media tried to bury the incident, labeling it an industrial accident. But insiders leaked fragments of reports showing panic within supply circles. The loss of that $2.8 billion shipment wasn't just financial, it dismantled confidence in Moscow's ability to secure its imports. Every new shipment from China would now carry fear, the fear of being the next target. In a war defined by drones, sabotage, and intelligence, this event became a perfect example of 21st century warfare, where information is as lethal as missiles, and secrecy can collapse in an instant. The story of that destroyed shipment is more than a headline. It's a warning that in this new kind of war, no deal, no alliance, no cargo is truly safe. Ukraine has made it clear, if you aid the invader, you share the risk of his downfall. And somewhere deep in the night, another train hums quietly through the dark, unaware of who might already be watching. In the following days, the world began piecing together what really happened. Intelligence leaks painted a clearer picture. The destroyed train had been part of a larger covert logistics chain connecting China's industrial hubs to Russia's military infrastructure. Hidden under commercial trade routes, these trains carried everything Moscow desperately needed: microchips, high-precision tools, dual-use drones, and even specialized machine parts for missile guidance systems. For months, Russian agents and Chinese intermediaries had used small companies in Central Asia as cover. They operated through Kazakhstan, Mongolia, and Belarus, using civilian documentation to mask the military nature of their cargo. It was a sophisticated network until Ukraine's cyber units managed to crack one of their encrypted communication channels. What they found was astonishing. Inside the intercepted messages were codes, coordinates, and shipment details, including the exact date and route of a $2.8 billion load scheduled to cross into Western Russia. The discovery triggered a rapid response. Kyiv's intelligence services quietly began preparing an operation unlike any before. Special teams worked in total secrecy, coordinating with drone operators, satellite analysts, and strike units. The mission was simple: destroy the train before it reached its destination. But the stakes were enormous. If they missed, the shipment would vanish into Russian territory and the network would go dark again. There would be no second chance. For days, the operation was delayed due to bad weather. Then, on a cold, cloudless night, the order came. Ukrainian jets took off from an undisclosed airbase, escorted by electronic warfare units that jammed Russian radar. At the same time, reconnaissance drones tracked the train as it crossed a bridge into occupied territory. The strike team waited until the convoy reached an isolated stretch of track. Then, in less than a minute, 2 precision-guided missiles hit their targets. The explosion was massive, a rolling firestorm that tore through the line of containers. Witnesses miles away said the ground shook like an earthquake. Within hours, Russian emergency teams rushed to the scene. But what they found was unrecognizable: twisted metal, melted containers, and fragments of equipment stamped with serial numbers traced back to Chinese manufacturers. The fire burned for nearly 12 hours. Even Moscow's propaganda channels couldn't explain away the scale of the destruction. Western intelligence agencies quietly confirmed what Ukraine had done, and privately applauded it. The strike not only crippled one of Russia's key supply lines, but also exposed Beijing's quiet role in sustaining Moscow's war effort. It became clear that the neutral stance China claimed in public was a carefully managed illusion. In diplomatic circles, tension spiked. Beijing summoned its ambassadors in Moscow for emergency talks, demanding answers on how Ukraine obtained the train's coordinates. Russian officials blamed internal leaks, while others suspected foreign intelligence cooperation. Whatever the truth, the damage was done. Kyiv's message was unmistakable. Any nation that arms Russia, directly or indirectly, will be held accountable, not through words, but through action. As the story spread across the world, the impact rippled far beyond the battlefield. In Europe, defense analysts hailed the operation as a masterclass in hybrid warfare. the perfect combination of intelligence, technology, and timing. It showed that Ukraine's reach had extended far beyond its borders. No longer confined to defending its territory, it was now dismantling the enemy's supply lifelines, one strike at a time. Inside Russia, panic spread among logistics and transport officials. Satellite tracking data showed multiple cargo trains rerouted or halted entirely for inspection. Moscow's once confident supply lines suddenly froze under fear of another Ukrainian strike. Each new delivery from China became a potential target, every border crossing a possible trap. Meanwhile, in China, the silence grew heavier. The incident had embarrassed Beijing at a critical moment, just as it tried to present itself as a peacemaker on the global stage. The images of burning Chinese containers and the wreckage marked with Mandarin script were impossible to hide. State media ignored it, but online discussions surged before being swiftly censored. Yet,